Dean, if you don't mind, if you could, I mean, like if I can ask you just kind of a follow-up question to some of the things it is you were talking about, looking at kind of the landscape, and it is shifting, if you will. We do see there's these alternative institutions that are giving it a shot. You know, we talked a little bit about what Daily Wire is doing and what these other guys are doing kind of in this space. Do you think that kind of that is going to be the way of the future with entertainment, like in film and even in TV? Not to say that like the Hollywood structure is going to be necessarily completely replaced, but do you see a world where a lot of that stuff, maybe now more than it ever has in modern history, thrives because people are simply looking for that opportunity, but also the means are a lot different, right? It's a lot more affordable than what they were in the past for people to come up with their own, film and shows and whatnot.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head, though, Eric, because the advent of technology, the fact that, we're on a podcast here that could be seen by millions of people, and nobody can stop us from doing this podcast. It's there. We're having these conversations. No one's telling us what to do or what we can't say. And if people find it compelling, they're going to listen to it. Joe Rogan having his podcast. I mean, when you have that big a voice and doing your thing, Elon Musk buying Twitter and showing that people were shadow banned and that there was, collusion with the government to shut up people if they're talking about, I don't want a vaccine, or I question this, or I question COVID policy, the stuff they're labeling misinformation. Tucker Carlson getting off the air there, all that stuff. Like you can't do project. DC isn't going to make Dean Cain All-American Lawman. They don't want to work with me. They don't want to work with Gabe. That's not going to happen, but we can do our version and still get it out to the masses. Right. And if people support us and are behind us, you're Joe Rogan, you're Elon Musk, you're Gabe El-Taib, you're Dean Cain. We've got these projects here. You're Eric July. And that's wonderful. Technology has allowed it so that like I can shoot a movie on my iPhone, and it comes down to, look, Superman versus Batman or Batman versus Superman. Zack Snyder, great filmmaker. But watching the movie, I mean, I started falling asleep at the Batman, go back and find it, his character, exposition. I was like, I already know all this. And then when they're fighting, and the fights are great, but they're throwing each other through buildings. All I was thinking about how many people are dying in those buildings. Superman would never let that happen. But also when you see a building go down, it's amazing. But you see 37 buildings go down, it kind of lessens the effect. You got to care about the characters. You got to care what's going on. And ultimately, the great thing about that is if somebody wants to make a movie on their iPhone and they tell a story that's compelling, the whole world can see it now. And that allows for artists to get their product out there. And for groups like Hollywood not to be able to control everything. Groups like Marvel and DC aren't able to control the comic book world because guys like you are out there making your own projects and making your own product. And that's the same thing here, independent movies and things like that. I just think it's just getting better and better so that it takes very little money to tell a story that's compelling and that's human and could be high quality. And I love that there's more competition out there. I love that there's more places to put product, whether it's the internet, streaming, I mean, anything like that, you can get stuff out there and you kind of can't stop it from happening. And I love that. I think that's going to go a long way toward fighting this sort of conglomerate world where, everything has to be completely within the boundaries and whitewash. And this is exactly how things are going. And if you go against the hierarchy, then you're going to get smothered. I love that there's not. And I love that also that we are the new rebels. Man, we're the rebels. That's the crazy thing. Mm-hmm. We're the rebels, and we're standing up for like merit-based stuff that everybody. The reason people want to come to the United States because there's more opportunity here. Because nobody cares what color, creed, race, religion. Are you coming up with a great book? You have a great story. Is it compelling? I love it. I don't care who you are. I love this message. I'm going to support you, and that's why everybody wants to be here.
Right.
Nah, I mean, I'm right there with you on that. And I guess, Gabe, you kind of have an interesting perspective as well, because it's similar. It's just on the more of the comic book side of things where you kind of, you've done your things and you've been a pro for as long as you have. And now you're kind of out of that market place. And you mean obviously been involved with us and what it is that you're doing, Big Man Comics. So How has that perspective sort of changed as well for you, right? Because you've done it all, right? With doing, I mean, a lot of people don't know you've worked on some of the bigger properties, the Star Wars of the world. You've done all that shit, and now you're doing what it is that you're doing now with the independent stuff, and you're seeing a lot of success. You're able to make a lot of money as well, and do your own thing. Sort of, what has been that experience? What has that experience been like? Excuse me, and how has, if at all, that perspective changed now that you're kind of doing your own thing?
Well, it was one of like a lot of anger and sorrow at first. You have to understand, I don't remember when I started drawing. I started drawing in the back of my grandparents' Mexican restaurant on big sheets of butcher paper. I have some very like vague memories, like 3 years old, maybe drawing Star Wars space battles. And I've just always loved to draw. And then I found comic books when I was like 12 or 13 at my friend Sean's house. And Jim Lee was the first, a Princeton alum like you, Dean. Jim Lee, I think he was just a few years ahead of you. He's the boss over there at DC. But I saw his X-Men comic, the best-selling comic of all time, 8 million copies or whatever sold. And I wanted to be him. I wanted to be his friend. I wanted to work in the studio. Long story short, I practiced my ass off, and Jim Lee personally hired me. It's like dream come true. Not only do you get in the NFL, your favorite player drafts you onto the team and he's throwing you touchdowns. You know what I mean? Like dream come true. Jim Lee, I have his phone number. He's taken my family out to dinner. He's given my family his Padre baseball box tickets. Like, wow. And it was awesome at first. And then like in those early mid Obama years, it's like things are getting weird. Like, why is this character doing that? Why is he saying this? And it grew and grew. And it was, I got to the point where like, I can't help them do this. This identity politics, this woke stuff. It's bad art. Because art is self-expression. We all know that. As an actor, Dean, you and I, Eric, as comic creators, and Eric as you as a commentator, art is self-expression. And if I'm woke and I'm afraid of the cancel pigs, thank you, Mark Miller, for the term cancel pigs. If I'm afraid of the cancel pigs, I will not express myself truthfully. And it will be bullshit what I make artistically. And it was very sad to live that way. And I had to hide at DC Comics. I didn't tell them I was a liberal, but I just didn't say anything the last 4 years I was there. After Trump won, they lost their minds. They lost their minds after he won. They just went crazy. And they did cancel people, like what they did to all kinds of people, you know, that are conservative, former artists at DC and Marvel. They can't work there anymore. We know it. And so it was a lot of anger and sorrow. But I realized, like, as a man, the most important thing to me as a man and a father and now a grandfather is emotional regulation. I can have any feelings I want, but I can't listen to them if they tell me to do the wrong thing. So instead of just being pissed and angry, it's like, I got to do something about this. So I want to thank the both of you to team up with guys like you that want to make good art that's uplifting, that's super. First thing, it's got to be entertaining. Absolutely. And we have excellent skills, so it's entertaining. Second thing, good messages. Heroes are good. Good is good. Evil is evil. Not all this postmodern, well, he's a good guy, but he also does cocaine. Like, no, that's not a good guy for kids to see. So I want to, when Indiana Jones steps into the bottomless chasm and he steps on that invisible rock bridge, stuff like that stuck with me from childhood. When I'm praying to God, like, okay, I'm leaving DC Comics. How am I going to pay my bills, God? What am I going to do? I'm going to leave. I'm going to do what you want, God, but what? Don't let me fall like Indiana Jones didn't fall. And when I tell stories like that with Dean, with you, I want people to read them. And then later in their life, they're like, you know, when Dean Cain, All-American Lawman, had to do blah, 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 he was really brave. And I like the way that felt. Like I could see myself doing something like that. So that's how it is for me. And I couldn't be happier to have stepped out, because I know a lot of pros, they're still there and they're terrified and they hate this like far left cancel stuff, but they don't say anything because they're doing what I was doing for a while. They're just keeping their head down and working so they can get paid, but they don't like it either. And I would just tell any of them, guys, it's time, step out. Social media will help you make your own books. You know, Don't live that way. You're selling yourself short and you're selling your art short. You know, life is a gift from God and he gives you these talents to make great art and you're hiding it. You're hiding it under a bushel. You know what I mean? Like you're not really being a true self-expressionist. And that's a shame. You know, you're going to live once. You don't want to regret it when you're old. So I'm proud to be with guys like you, Eric, and Dean, who we just step out and we just say, this is me, this is what I believe. And I could be right, I could be wrong, but I'm going to stand by it, damn it.
Yeah.
You know,
no, that's what it's about, man. I mean, of course, we need more of it. We've seen a lot of that because a lot of people are being kind of forced to face the music. I mean, it is an absolute reality. And to everybody's point, it's just, like I was saying earlier, you can't possibly do your best work, and that can't be fulfilling to be under those sort of conditions to where it's like, you know, something is going wrong, but you know, for the sake of maybe collecting that paycheck, it can't feel that good, right? That can't feel good. I mean,
right. The position I was in, I have a mortgage in Southern California, San Diego, which I think as of 2 weeks ago was announced the most expensive city in America. Highest cost of living is where I live. And I was like, I have a mortgage. They want me to make woke crap. What do I do? You know what I mean? And I had to step out like Indiana Jones in faith to God. Like, okay, I'll leave. This is terrible what they're asking me to do. And
right.
And wow, I couldn't be happier that I left.
No, I was looking at that. Obviously, I'm glad because it was around that time when you had walked away from that when you and I linked up, right? And I got amazing colors for ISOM. So God has a way for sure bringing individuals together that need.
I wouldn't know either of you or be friends with either of you because Dean saw me. I was like global viral news for 3 days when I did that. Like people were calling me from Europe if I wanted to be interviewed. It was insane. It was very weird. I'm sure Dean knows this. To be global news is very weird to be that for 2-3 days. And I wouldn't be friends with Dean either because that's how you noticed me, right? Dean, you messaged me on Twitter or whatever. And I'm like, well, let me call you. So I called you and I'm like, what can I do for you, Mr. Cain? And you said, what can I do for you? I love your stance. I want to help promote you. I was like, wow, look at this guy. So, it's been a love affair ever since,
Damn right. But that's the whole point. It's like, if you see people making a stand and you agree with what they're saying and their values and why they're doing it, that's why I was so happy to reach out, because that's the kind of people I want to collaborate with. And what Eric has done, I want to collaborate with these people who care about the product and are legit and, aren't just corporate tools running along with the identity politics and those rules. And I love that. Again, we're the new rebels and I love it.
Yep. That's what it's about, man. And, seeing this play out the way that it is allowed me to link up with other people, awesome individuals. This has been I couldn't tell you just even a span of the last couple of years, man. And just the awesome people that I've been able to meet up with and collaborate with has been incredible. And, one thing that seems to be the common theme as we work with folks, definitely folks that we brought on here at the Rippaverse that were doing a lot of the mainstream stuff is, just how fun it is. And again, how fulfilling it is to be able to create and not just have to worry about that sort of stuff. And then you're doing things that you didn't even know that you were capable of because subconsciously, maybe what you were suppressing all that because again, you were just under those bizarre conditions or whatever it is that you want to call it. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It is unfortunately ruining a lot of these sort of Americanized like industries. Like I look at American comic books, for example, right now. And we set this, when I say we, I'm using it like in America, like that was our genre, right? I mean, you even go to the old mangakas, they were all cartoonists, they were all influenced by American artists, right? That's not an opinion, that's a fact. Now it's the complete opposite when you look at the Japanese now they kind of run things, right? And now people are going to, we just talked about this, like Godzilla and manga and what's going on with that. Like now you're starting to see folks that are tired of the nonsense because they're looking for someone else to produce some sort of entertainment that they can just enjoy and kind of get lost in, that's being produced on the other side of the planet. Now I do believe, and it's funny because again, we are athletes. I'm a little different. I get it. Because I look at like what's going on right now in various industries, but let's take it to the comic book industry. I look at that like this to me would be where the American entrepreneur steps in and says, there's no fucking way we're going to allow this to happen. Like, and we're going to compete. It's not that we're going to stop beefing with Japanese people. No, it's more of we're going to compete. There's no way that they're going to be able to kick our ass in our own backyard. That's just not gonna happen. Alpha Core #1's pre-order is live. Written by the legendary Chuck Dixon and penciled by Joe Bennett. Visit Rippaverse.com to grab a copy and any of the merchandise items. Be sure to also check out the animated trailer for the campaign, which is the latest project from Rippaverse Studios. Y'all be easy.